Just a reminder to our Speculating Wildly About Crime listeners, this is for entertainment purposes only and solely the thoughts and opinions of our team. We do invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Hello, and welcome to Speculating Wildly About Crime. I'm Janelle, and I'll be your host today. I've got something a little different this week, considering this is a closed case with no foul play suspected. However, I was curious what my SWAT pack thought about it, and I'm going to make them speculate with me anyway. Let's talk about what happened to Brittany Murphy. If you don't know who Brittany Murphy is, go watch Clueless. Brittany was raised by a single mom, Sharon. Her father was involved in organized crime and was in and out of prison for much of her childhood. Needless to say, they were never very close. However, back to Sharon. Sharon and Brittany were best friends. They even called themselves soulmates and lived together for most, if not all, of this entire timeline. She began acting in the early 90s and was huge on the sitcom scene. She is known for her roles in Clueless, 8 Mile, Girl Interrupted, and Just Married. She had short relationships with co-stars Ashton Kutcher and Eminem. When Brittany erupted onto the scene, she was the girl next door, pretty but relatable. She soon realizes that her talent isn't enough when she starts losing parts because she wasn't, quote, fuckable enough. Then we have this total transformation. Changes her hair, loses weight, she's dressing differently. It's the typical Hollywood trope. And some might say it's the movie Clueless playing out in real life. And it's this total double-edged sword. As she becomes more of a sex symbol, along with that comes rumors of anorexia and drugs. So first she's not skinny enough, then she's too skinny. And this was all happening at the time when paparazzi was crossing major lines, like the Perez Hilton days when tabloid material was everything. She did have some questionable appearances at award ceremonies and such, where, if I had to guess, she was one way or the other not sober. But here's just a little bit of what she was dealing with.
Or Just Married, which is
Brittany Murphy.
which is your new girlfriend.
Yes.
She got to be big from Clueless, but can you believe she was the ugly chick in Clueless?
That-
But
the
she was a
ugly girl
fat,
never-
ugly chick. She trying to transform herself. What are you talking about? I don't mean to be hard on your girlfriend, but she seems like she's been around the block a couple of times.
You know what? I think she's had 3 boyfriends.
Oh, really?
It just so.
You better wear a condom. She's been with Eminem.
Oh,
He's
stop
been
it.
around the block too. I'm saying, who knows what he's been up to? When you saw the movie Clueless, did you ever think you'd be banging her?
Yeah, but you know what they always do with the ugly girl in the movie? It's always like a pretty girl.
Remember all the Britney Spears craziness where she couldn't do anything? It was that same kind of time in our lives where nothing was private. Around this time, she gets into a rut with her career. She's just not getting the dramatic roles she wants. It's all rom-coms, and she knows she deserves better. After 2 failed engagements, she meets a screenwriter, in quotes, because he didn't seem to accomplish anything, by the name of Simon Monjack. So she's barely out of an engagement, and then they quickly become inseparable. They were engaged within months of Brittany's previous engagement ending, which also coincided with Simon's visa expiring soon. So I know that beauty is on the inside, but we definitely have an odd couple here. And I think that's why people in her inner circle had a lot of questions.
Agreed. It seems like a unnatural pair.
Yeah,
Actually.
especially when you look at who she had dated in her past. This was anti-type of any of that.
I'm assuming he had no money or big money where it would be like, oh, I'll take one for the team because XYZ.
When I think about him, I think of the one-upper where I have 2 Ferraris. Well, I have 10. Like he had this whole backstory of where he came from, where his family came from, and none of that ended up to be true. So just a total salesman with nothing to back it up. So people close to her have a pretty instant dislike for this man and the relationship that they're forming. The only person on board was her mom, Sharon. Friends describe it as a type of hypnosis, and kind of a codependent relationship. So he completely isolated her, fired her entire team, and basically wouldn't let her do anything without him. At some point, she lost access to her phone and email address. So if anybody wanted to contact her, they would have to go through Simon. He would drive her to set and wait there. And anytime there was a break, Brittany would go sit in the car with him. People close to the industry began making it clear that this guy is a con man and he needs to be kept away from Brittany. He was even known as Simon Monjack around town. And all her manager could say was there was nothing he could do. He tried and got fired for it. Friends even held an intervention, but Brittany and her mother would not hear any of it. They would just say that they love Simon and for everyone to stay out of their business. So once they got married, which I believe was around after a year of dating, they were basically housebound. They were not this Hollywood couple that was seen out on the town. And by this time, Simon is making all decisions for Brittany and her mom, including controlling the finances. Simon was buying loads and loads of these extravagant jewelry pieces, saying that they would be investments, along with properties and stocks. Directors and co-stars from her later work state that she was completely out of it, described as glassy-eyed and emaciated. She didn't know her lines, making it extremely difficult to work with her. It was rumored that he would constantly critique her appearance, which would prompt her to have more plastic surgery, and just all around made her feel very insecure. When Simon made himself the manager, the agent, y'all, even her makeup artist, it was another reason that people didn't want to work with Brittany because they would have to deal with him. So November 2009, Brittany, Simon, and Sharon traveled to Puerto Rico for filming. Brittany was actually fired 2 days into shooting because of Simon showing up to set belligerently drunk and causing problems. When she came to his defense, when they tried to remove him from set, that was it. On this trip, Simon and Sharon fell ill while still there. Shortly upon returning, Brittany develops the same flu-like symptoms. December 20th, 2009, Sharon calls 911 after Brittany was found unresponsive on the bathroom floor and was put in the shower with cold water to resuscitate her rather than performing CPR. She is rushed to the hospital and pronounced dead at 10:04 a.m. Now, at the time of death, Brittany and Simon had been married around 3 years. She was 32 years old. Brittany was buried on Christmas Eve. So fingers quickly pointed at Simon. The autopsy was originally denied by him, but was overruled by the coroner. Both Sharon and Simon swear this could not have been an overdose. When the house was searched, approximately 90 bottles of medication were found on their nightstands, many of those in aliases. And it was rumored that Sharon was going to 6 different pharmacies to pick up all of this medication. Everyone is awaiting the ME's report, and the cause of death comes back as acute pneumonia with iron deficiency, anemia, and multiple drug intoxication listed as contributing factors. There was no evidence of trauma. The anemia would have weakened her immune system, and it was to the point that she was in dire need of a transfusion. Plus, 14 over-the-counter drugs were found in her system, half of them not prescribed to her, but to Simon. So these included 2 anti-seizure medications. She was not epileptic, but Simon was. 4 different benzodiazepines, no signs of drugs of abuse, all prescriptions. What is it, Jamie?
I was going to say, okay, so no signs of abuse, all drugs of prescription, but
I just mean it wasn't cocaine or heroin or...
okay, got it. But many people abuse Oxycontin, for example. Like, I feel like it could still have been drugs that you were using for not the medicinal purposes that they were meant for.
So there was hydrocodone, cough suppressant, something that is found in inhalers. To me, it was likely that she was just trying to combat this, whatever, flu.
Okay, I can see that, but I can also see like hydrocodone, this cough syrup with codeine is called scissor. Those are all kind of prescription drugs that we use to get better, but also so many people use in the wrong way.
But I don't think she was using them to get high. I think it
Right.
was just to get some rest and feel better. What she should have done was go to the doctor, or somebody should have taken her to the hospital.
I don't believe she was using those for recreational purposes.
But was her name on any of those prescriptions?
Only half of them were prescribed to her, or one of her aliases, which was Lola Manilow. Simon and Sharon continued to live in the house together, and we start to see what can only be regarded as strange behavior. Simon admits that he and Sharon have been sharing a bed for comfort after losing Brittany. Then we have this photo shoot of what looks like creepy engagement pictures, and I want to know what you guys think of this. And like, why choose this picture of Brittany?
You guys, I don't know if you've ever heard of the ick, but I totally have it right now. Like all of the ick. I've got the ick.
I don't know what the purpose of this would be.
Like, are these
guy
morning
in the-
photos or
It looks like they're holding up like for a missing person.
I've never
know.
seen anything like this in my entire life of true crime.
I want
You
to talk
should-
to the photographer that did these.
They are clearly images of them comforting each other, but it's very handsy is not the right word.
It's like provocative, but not provocative, but
It
yeah.
almost looks like parents that lost a child.
And then they're like holding each other's hands with the interlocking fingers, which is a very intimate thing to do.
Yeah, so it caught a lot of people off guard, and the questions just kept on rolling in. It's not the image that I'm sure Brittany would have wanted. I'm sure Brittany didn't want to be in any of these images. It makes me want to call my mother and say, if I go missing,
Yes.
do not ever use a picture like this.
He looks so bad in those pictures. Oh my, worse than the first picture you showed me.
Yo, he did an outfit change too. If you notice one of the photos, I feel like he's in a pink shirt.
Reel it back. I need to see that.
I think he did an outfit change.
They did headshots as well.
We'll
They
have
were-
some of these on our Facebook discussion group.
There were
Yes.
solo pictures of just them that looked like headshots.
If you're gonna do photography, you might as well.
Oh yeah, look at that outfit change.
What the sh- Oh,
Because she has an outfit change too. That's right.
this picture right here on the left with her head's on his chest. What the fuck is that?
Why? That
Oh.
looks like
I-
the most awkward engagement picture ever.
Yeah.
Not doing that with Kyle's dad ever. You know what I mean?
I feel like she's purposely trying to show off that ring. That ring is probably not an engagement ring, but is that Brittany's ring that's worth a lot of money? I feel like it's trying to be vocal in every picture, and I don't like that.
The one where
And
she
who's
has
this
her
guy?
head resting on
Who's
his
this guy?
shoulder,
Very
has her head
professional.
rested on his shoulder, and she has her hand on his stomach. That's a super intimate thing to do.
I know.
Weird.
It's so uncomfortable because that one is specifically, that's like an engagement photo if they were smiling and happy.
They hate
So-
each other.
Maybe they got like a good package for engagement photos and they were like, let's just go with this guy. It's definitely wild. So they also do this super sketchy interview with Larry King. And I want to share some clips and get your thoughts.
Yes, please.
You didn't want an autopsy at first? No, there was this woman who just lost her daughter. It was such a shock. This pristine body that was curvy in all the right places and the skin like silk. And how could I say in front of her mother, cut her up? You were living in the house? Sharon lived with us throughout the marriage.
Yeah, I was.
That's
always,
three of you lived
I
together.
was always there, and my daughter and I lived together always. And
So what happened
it was
that day?
three of
That's why these rumors are so ludicrous. I mean, Larry, we have clung to each other.
It's been
We
weeks.
cry day after day. I lay and I look at the ceiling. My mother-in-law comes in with neuropathy, shaking, needing to be held. I'll say this because I know you can't. She said, "Mom, I'm dying. I love you." And
Mom, I'm dying. I love you. She knew she was dying.
That was before, but
no, baby. This was you forgotten time.
sweetheart. Oh,
Did he call her baby?
He sure did.
What the fuck?
And I think she said something back, sweetheart or something.
Is that not? I got the chills. Do we need to break to go take showers?
Yes, please.
Maybe.
So much ick right now. You guys. Ugh. I'm thinking he was
Yeah.
keeping them on drugs, like her and the mom.
Okay, because I was going to
Mom
say, on
seems
top of
fucked
the
up.
ick, that mom seemed really fucked up in that interview. Eyes glassy, word slurring, not good.
I don't even know what prompted them to give this interview. Unless they were paid for it, I don't know why they would even agree to this.
This is going to be their bread and butter for a bit. They are going to be able to make money off of Brittany's death.
And then when they got talking about the autopsy in the first part, when he's,
Oh,
she just was
gross.
so like sexy and her skin was so like, that's why
And
you
he
didn't
was,
want
like,
to get an autopsy?
She's dead, bro. No.
In front of her mother, too. Ugh, curves in all the right places.
Didn't you like describe her
Ugh.
skin as silky? It was
Yes.
just, oh.
I mean, I
And-
don't even want to hold my boyfriend's hand with his parents in the same room.
With the whole mother-daughter relationship, it has been said by both Brittany and Mother that they are more best friends. I hate that. I've never liked that. If my mom ever called me her friend, I would be livid, like, you're my mother. But they truly believe this. I think they somehow detach the mother-daughter titles from each other. Respectfully, I think that even Brittany felt that way as well, that this was my friend, not my mom.
Correct. And the only way I can get past this interview is because Brittany and her mom were so close, then obviously she was going to be close with Simon. It was the three of them always. So that's the only way I can justify it in my head. And now I can't ever talk about it again because I have to get that image out of my head. But
it is coming across as like throuple.
Mm-hmm.
Ew.
makes-
Ew.
yeah,
I've
like,
never
sure.
thought of that.
I did. I was already thinking that.
So my mom lives with me and my husband, and I can guarantee you that if I passed away, there is no way that they would have pictures like that.
I want you to show these pictures to your husband and your mom and just that's a follow-up reaction on what you get back.
No.
So I had one other question. I got like creep vibes when he was talking about how she was saying, "I know I'm dying," and she was like, "Oh, really?" And he was like, "Yeah, don't you remember that?" What is even going on right now? Because it was just kind of snuck in the middle of the other bullshit.
Again, I don't know what they hope to gain from any of this.
Yeah.
I guess if you just feel the need to tell your side of the story if you're under scrutiny.
Keeping the money train rolling.
Shouldn't have fired Brittany's team. You should have kept some of those people. People begin to notice that Sharon is starting to act very submissive to Simon, like Brittany did. Then we start to learn who this man really was. Shortly after Brittany's death, he reaches out to friends and family, stating that he has started a foundation under Brittany's name and was asking for donations in the thousands to come to a memorial for her. It's revealed that this foundation was never registered and quickly evaporates. Interesting tidbit, Sharon was the sole beneficiary of the entire estate. Simon got nothing. I wonder if this is why Simon had to keep Sharon close. Fast forward to May 23rd of 2010. A about 5 months after Brittany passed. Simon is found dead inside the same bathroom that Brittany collapsed in. His cause of death, pneumonia. He was 40 years old. Simon's toxicology report showed a variety of antidepressants, anti-anxiety medicine, and pain medication. So then we have Brittany's dad, Angelo Barilotti, who, again, she didn't really have a relationship with him. He comes out of the woodwork and gets hair samples of Brittany's to test. They come back with very high levels of lead or heavy metals, which he then went all conspiracy theory on how they were poisoned of some sort of product of government interference, basically killed off by the government. However, it is suspected that the heavy metals were from hair dye, as they were not in her system, only her hair, and it would have shown in her nails and teeth had it been poisoned. Angelo wanted Brittany exhumed, but Sharon refused. Sharon claimed that the house was filled with toxic mold, and the documentary, What Happened Brittany Murphy, includes accounts of people visibly seeing mold. The Emmy claimed that there was no evidence of mold found in the bodies. The coroner's department offered to have someone come out from the health department to check the house. Sharon denied access and responded that she was selling the house anyway, so it didn't matter.
It fucking does matter, though. That's part of the investigation.
She later sued the home builder and settled for $600,000. After Simon passed, Sharon was really strapped for cash, so she was trying to sell some of that investment jewelry, and come to find out it was all fake. Wasn't worth anything. And I could go on and on about all the reports of fraud that Simon committed legally or morally, but this guy was bad news. He could lie and steal with the best of them. It turns out he had 2 children that nobody knew about, a daughter that he was supporting in a private school in England, and a son in which he bought the mother's silence. He went through roughly $3 million of Brittany's money in 3 years. So I want to hear what you guys think. My big question here, why did Brittany not go to the hospital or a minute clinic? And then why did Sharon not take Simon to the hospital after seeing this same behavior? If they had gotten medical attention, they would probably still be alive.
But manipulation is a hell of a tool to use. So if he's isolating Brittany from everybody but her mother, if he's manipulating the mother along with Brittany, was there a conversation of, oh, you don't need to go to the doctor. They're going to prescribe you the same things that we already have at home. Don't bother. What happens if whoever leaks to TMZ that you're doing whatever? It's best just to stay home, etc., etc.
Brittany was essentially both of their meal tickets.
If they genuinely believed that it was just a simple case of walking pneumonia, that's going to clear up in a few days. We've got every prescription under the sun at home. And that makes me think, like with the shower situation, if she's starting to get out of it, maybe when you're drunk, what do you want to do? Like a cold shower, smack yourself in the face? Isn't that in all of the TV shows where you have to slap some sense into somebody? Was that what they were trying to do with the shower water? I just feel like this plan backfired on him, honestly. I think he had a huge ego, so he wasn't seeing that everybody in the industry was saying, it's you, bro. We're not going to work with her because of you. And so when you say she was his meal ticket, that's true. But I think he had a giant ego that couldn't recognize that letting her go will actually benefit him more to get the bigger roles. And obviously, with that many prescriptions under aliases and my tinfoil hat, which I don't know how much tinfoil I would need, but getting prescriptions in Hollywood for popular actors probably isn't the most difficult thing to do. There's probably some sham doctor out there that's writing as many prescriptions as you can imagine. So with the abuse of drugs, the manipulation, the weird stuff that's happening with the mom, I feel like he was just feeding her drugs more and more until it finally was too much in connection with her illness. I feel like it was almost like an unfortunate accident.
Dana has some things there that make a lot of sense. I definitely feel no matter what actually happened to Brittany, Simon was at fault for some of it. He was controlling, and then he was probably feeding her and her mom drugs. So why would she be with a guy like this? He was charming. Even if he was a bullshitter salesman or whatever you want to call him, he was able to do that. Once he got her hooked there, then he could start feeding her drugs and then keep her. And maybe she didn't realize that's what was going on. No matter what happened to her, it was stress, it was him being controlling of her, and the drug stuff combo, all of that together maybe did make her have the pneumonia. Do we even know if all those drugs together mix to make pneumonia?
She was already sick with something, whether it was the flu or not, but it turned into pneumonia.
Okay.
Either because of her anemia or just lack of treatment.
I'm with Dana with the fact that I feel like he was probably saying, "You don't need to go to the doctor. Like, you're fine. You don't need to do that."
I think Simon was definitely manipulating her and her mom and keeping her drugged up for whatever reason. That there must have been something in the house that may have caused pneumonia, whether it was the mold or something like that. But as soon as you said that he passed away as well, that's what made me think that. As far as putting her in the shower, if she was congested and that was part of it, they might have put her in like a hot shower to get the steam out. So I think her death was probably an accident, but everything that led up to it was probably due to Simon. He might not have killed her, but he definitely played all the reasons into it. And then with her mom after her death, I definitely think Simon was drugging her along, and who knows what would have happened if he wouldn't have passed away and what would have happened to her mom. But at least in that interview specifically, she definitely seems just totally out.
There's a lot here. So I'm just going to start by saying that when Cindy was talking, had this crazy light bulb go off. And
oh gosh,
I know
Jody
you
had a
all are
crazy
always,
light bulb.
hear me out. Okay. And where it's coming from is everything is too coincidental for me. And I don't like it. I feel like there's some connection between them. I also don't love how close he was with the mom after the death. That was really weird. That interview is going to haunt my nightmares for sure. The light bulb that went off in my head was, what if he and the mom always had a thing? And maybe there was some secret love affair from way before. And he had to find a way to weasel himself into their family and not make it look like he was dating the mom, because for some reason that would be weird. For whatever reason, they had to put like a front on their relationship. And so he said, the perfect front is I'm in the business, your daughter's in the business, we can be a couple. So then that maybe explains why she would be with this guy. He kicked way out of his fucking coverage to be with her, right? For some reason, it was manipulated to have him put up a front, almost like this is my pretend girlfriend, but I really want to be with the mom. And this is where it's going to get real weird. Maybe the mom was super into Simon. And again, I want to put this out there as pure speculation because it's not heard anywhere, but it's just my crazy brain thinking. Maybe the mom got like a weird kind of jealous. And when Brittany started to get sick, she's, let's just pump her with all these drugs. Unfortunately, led to her death. Because I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to the case that we just covered with Priceless Pizza. If that's my kid and I feel like she's that sick that I have to drag her into a shower, I'm taking her to the ER. I'm not pumping her full of drugs and putting her in the shower. If Chloe has a fever of 103 for more than 3 hours, we're going to the ER. So that just struck me as really weird. So I'm wondering if like somehow some foul play was there where they were feeding Brittany these drugs without even her noticing. Maybe it was in her food or whatever it was, right? And then ironically, you said 5 months later, he dies basically the same way. So maybe she gets pissed off again. I've done this once before, I'll just do it again. Like I said, totally crazy. But as you all are talking, I'm like, these things are so connected. The fact that they died basically the same way, 5 months apart, that's so weird. I'm like way on another continent, but those dots have to tie together somehow.
If they had a throuple, it would make sense. Maybe they both planned to kill Brittany and then mom and guy are together. Maybe they didn't have the relationship to start with, but then because they all live together or whatever, and they have their throuple.
So Angelo, Brittany's dad, after he went through his whole, the government poisoned them, insinuated that Sharon had been poisoning them. But then we go back to there was no evidence of those heavy metals in her body. It was only in her hair.
But why does it have to be poisoning with heavy metals? Why can't it be poisoning with the drugs that killed her? They found 90 bottles of medications. All these drugs were bought under the aliases. I don't think she had the heavy metals. The heavy metals were from the hair dye,
You're saying
1,000%.
some other way.
I was alluding to before, these are drugs that are used for recreational getting high. And if enough to know that, you also know enough to know what you need to do to make them be an overdose. So could she have said, hey, if we give her A, B, C, D, and E, she'll OD?
Going down that route, Jamie, I wish we knew Sharon's toxicology report of the drugs that she's getting under all these aliases. Is she getting them to use herself, or is she obtaining those drugs to provide them to Brittany and Simon? She looks out of it in that interview, but I don't know what her baseline is. So it's hard to know if that's just her baseline. She might not actually be using.
But okay, if she does know that these drugs can be used for these recreational purposes, but also used to an extreme to overdose, you would know two things. Number one, what one of those drugs would make you high enough to be okay? And number two, if you got all this shit going on, of course you're going to turn to drugs.
Jamie, you think that Sharon masterminded this whole thing?
I do.
What's the
And I know
motive?
that sounds really weird. The piece of shit Simon.
You know, Brittany's money though too. So that would be
money doesn't hurt.
Fair enough. Because do we know anything about Sharon and what
remember that estate wasn't what, I mean, she got the money from the house, but probably most of what was liquid, like Simon.
Yeah, she maybe took a trip to Mexico with that money. She didn't get rich off it. Yeah.
Yeah, but we hear a lot of true crime stories of people that will kill their husbands for that $20,000 life insurance payout.
If Simon was so controlling, why didn't he have her change it to him being her husband?
When you said that Brittany died, had drugs in her system, it was pneumonia, and then 5 months later, he died with the same thing, my mind immediately went, Sharon did something. There's no way. Like, there has to be a connection there. So I definitely was exactly where Jamie was. This one's hard because the initial family dynamic, Brittany and her mother, as we talked about, and like how it comes across, is they had that very best friend relationship. Even in that Larry King interview, Sharon is, oh, I was always there. Yeah, it was the three of us. We lived together. The way she's describing that, it seems like there is a dynamic of very strong codependency between the mother and Brittany. Sharon definitely would have been threatened to have anyone trying to take Brittany out of that environment, out of living with her, which is why I think maybe she didn't have such an issue with Simon when he came in, because Simon moved right into the house. They're just going to live as a big, happy family together. However, Simon coming into that situation of this mother-daughter relationship where they are so codependent with each other, I think that was prime for him to manipulate the situation. What he was doing to her was emotional abuse, financial abuse. He was controlling every aspect of her life. He completely isolated her from every single person in their life. And even when friends and family were saying, This is not a good relationship. Brittany and Sharon were both at the place where they pushed all of those people away. So Sharon had zero support. Brittany had zero support. They had Simon. That was it. That's the only support they had. So I think definitely after Brittany's relationship, a couple of things can be true. Sharon at that point was so dependent on him. That's why they had that strange relationship and were so close. If Simon was thinking that more money was left to Sharon, like Janelle said, that's probably why he wanted to keep her close. He had another reason to now manipulate her. He wanted to make sure that he still had that like cash cow finance that he became accustomed to. It is interesting, the point that Cindy brought up, that he didn't make her change it. Maybe he just wasn't smart enough to know to do that. I feel like where I land, both of them died same exact way, 5 months apart. It's very odd. So I feel like it needs to be something in the house or something with these combination of drugs that causes pneumonia. And that's what happened. Whether Sharon was giving to them or not, I don't know. It's possible. But I could see a situation where she's not going to the doctor, giving the medicine. This will make you better. We have all these pills. Why go to the doctor? If he's isolating her even more, he doesn't want her in the outside world. He doesn't even want her being in contact with other people. But I wonder what if taking it down this road, he sees her getting more sick and he's just, I guess we can let her die and then I'll get everything. So I think there was at the bare minimum some type of negligence or neglect for him not, and even Sharon for that respect, they're both living with Brittany and they're seeing how sick she is, of not putting her in a car and bringing her to the hospital because she probably would have lived if she had gone to the hospital. Pneumonia can be treated. I don't think I'm landing that it was a purposeful, anyone was drugging anyone in the exact idea to kill them or to murder them. But maybe once they saw the effects taking hold, they just decided not to do anything about it and let her death happen, which is just very unfortunate because it could have been prevented.
I will preface with saying I love Brittany Murphy, and her death was the first celebrity death that hit me. I just felt like we were best friends after Clueless. I have 3 theories that I'm going to throw out there. I'm going to start with the first main one, which is the mom, the boyfriend. We've all said the same things that I would say, so I'm not going to rehash that at all. But what I want to throw out just for myself is that Simon obviously was a manipulator. And a part of me wonders if Sharon learned how to be a manipulator by being manipulated or by watching her daughter being manipulated. I wonder if there was Brittany who was like, I'm going to take care of my mom. And she put up the fight of, I'm not signing my fortune over to you, Simon. You have this amazing story of how successful you are. If something happens to me, you'll be fine. I need to make sure my mom is okay. That is what caused Mom and Simon to connect. Where I get lost in that is the same type of death. However, the autopsies were not that great. So there's 90 prescriptions with a lot of aliases, but that doesn't mean she's taking them or doesn't even know that those medications are coming into her home or her drinks, her bottled water, her food. My second theory, which is a little out there, but the father has been in prison for being a part of the mob. Who better to go after if you have a vengeance? Brittany Murphy bought Britney Spears' mansion in
Correct.
2003. Brittany Murphy died in 2009. Britney Spears started going a little crazy, quote unquote, whatever word you want to put to it. A part of me wonders, could there have been things implanted in the house that would be in the air ventilation system that was meant for Britney Spears, that Brittany and Simon ended up inhaling. Maybe it was the master bedroom, maybe it was the West Wing, that Brittany and Simon ended up getting the most of, and Britney Spears got just enough to make her a little off. I know that is far-fetched, because then you have to think too, like, why didn't that happen to Mother? But there was just a few months of Mother being in Brittany and Simon's bedroom before Simon passed, right? So if Mother was on one part of the house, but the poison or whatever, the circulation was focused toward the room that they're going to be in the most, which would be the master, maybe she wasn't exposed enough to it. I know that it's far-fetched, but
I like it.
If that was something that happened, I think it would be something not intentional stuff. So we know there was a ton of stuff going on with Britney Spears, maybe not at that time, but so much controlling with her family. So maybe they had video cameras and they had like mercury or something that broke.
When Brittany met Simon, she was in this vulnerable place where she was just getting attacked from all ends. It's just, what do you people want from me? I have done everything you asked. Now you're just attacking me more. And so she met this man who was different than anybody she had ever been in a relationship with. Maybe he was super charming. Maybe he had these stories. It was probably bullshit, but still, he had these stories and he wasn't a threat to her as far as you'll be able to use something against me in the tabloids, or maybe she thought that could be like an under the radar relationship instead of being in every magazine from dating people in the business. As far as the way that he isolated her, I do question, why did he not try to do that with Sharon?
Maybe he was starting though, because of how drugged she was at the interview.
But one of the first people that you work on are the closest.
Because they were fucking.
I was just thinking maybe it was less Simon isolating her and her isolating herself. And then Simon was trying to just medicate her to keep her happy, but in the nice, somewhat caring method of a strange husband.
I think he was definitely pushing these drugs on her. I don't know if it was to keep her in her, it's gross, but keep her in her place and be the, I'm here to protect you. I'm what you need. I know what's best for you. Based on how he began to control everything, I could see him being like, let me take this off of you. I will pay the bills, make sure the finances are taken care of. You don't need to worry about this. For a minute, I thought it was strange that Sharon came out of this unscathed. But at the end of the day, I don't think there was anything going on with her and Simon.
They had engagement pictures together.
It was a package. They got a good deal.
Those were morning pictures.
You have to remember, when they met, she was in her late 20s. I know when I was in my late 20s, I didn't have things figured out yet. And especially when you've gone through trauma, whether it be relationships. I've never been attacked by the media. I could not imagine, but you have career issues where you're very unhappy. I think she was just super vulnerable to, you got an idea that can help, I will try it. If this pill is going to make me feel better, I'll do it.
So you think he came to her and said, hey, you're having trouble in the media. Let me take care of you. Let me help you through this.
I think it was probably like, your people aren't taking care of you. I will do that. I think that's how he turned her against everybody else. I'm saying this, but it still doesn't make sense in my head, but I'm not in that position that she was in. I think that she was easy prey for somebody like him. And I think he broke her.
So they are from Atlanta, Georgia, and Atlanta's a good sized city, but it's not LA, it's not Hollywood, it's not New York. And then when she told her mother, I want to be on television, her mom was like, okay, let's make this happen. I think that she was easily able to get caught up, and this cute boy likes me. And then she was getting burned because one of the biggest issues that she was saying is people are not taking me seriously. I should be in these huge roles, but she was brilliant. She should have been and could have been and would have been in those huge roles. Simon comes in and he's not the six pack play typical person, but he believed her. He showed faith in her. I think that he validated her, and it was everything that she needed. And it played into her detriment in some ways, unfortunately, and it breaks my heart.
Everything aside, she was not a healthy person at the time of her death. She was not mentally, emotionally, physically healthy. As for him, I have a strong feeling that he was against her going to seek treatment because maybe they would find out all the shit that was in her bloodstream. And then for him, I'm sure he did love her. I hope he loved her
I think so.
the way that she thought he did. And maybe you just stop taking care of yourself. And it is wild that it was pneumonia for both of them. But for Brittany, she thought that Simon knew everything because he portrayed himself as this genius person. And then when it came to himself, I think he probably did the same thing. We talked about he had a big ego. So maybe it was like, I'm not going to the doctor. But we know like he wasn't taking care of himself. The thing that just sticks with me is why did Sharon not force him to go see somebody?
Especially just seeing it just happened 5 months
It
earlier.
just happened. So let's learn from our lessons and
She
go,
was just so
go get
drunk
some
or
help.
so high on something.
Maybe, yeah, she was just
A
so out
whole
of it that
different world when you're in the public eye. If we took a 5 minute break and Googled how many people could still be alive if they'd have called 911 3 days ago, especially because when you think of, okay, the minute the ambulance show up, of course, it's going to be
TMZ's right behind him.
Brittany's overdose because she's 120 pounds, even though we told her to be 120 pounds. And you are owned when you're in the public eye. So when you have your manager saying, don't call 911 unless if I can have to, and then call me first. Like, we don't know those things that have happened. Like, what I would love to know is we had talked about how Brittany was getting fired from movies and because of how she was reacting or acting or not remembering. I would love to know what her responses were to that. Are there interviews of her saying, I don't know what was wrong with me?
No, but you're on to something. I remember this crazy story, and maybe some of y'all remember it, but like you're right, David. Like being famous and having that spotlight put on you really does something to your psyche. I watched a lot of Saved by the Bell when I was growing up, and do you all know that when Dustin Diamond got diagnosed with cancer, he said, I'm not going to go through any treatment because I don't want any of that in the media. I'm just going to die quietly. That's sad too, because that's almost subconscious suicide, right? I'm not going to help myself because it's easier if I don't.
And to what you said earlier, Janelle, what could the mom have done to force him to go to the doctor? Is there evidence that she never said anything? You can only nag someone so many times about, go, like, call the doctor. Somebody's got to do house calls in Los Angeles.
in the documentary, his mother spoke and said that she had begged Sharon, please call an ambulance, get him to a hospital.
So Sharon called his mother, or he
His
called his mother?
mother called Sharon and said, please make sure he goes and gets help. Just
How did
call the
you
hospital.
know he was sick though?
I guess Simon had talked to his mom and
Okay.
told her these symptoms he was having. It sounded like Sharon brushed it off, where it was like he's past the worst of it.
I did Google it here quick, and according to the American Lung Association, more than 50,000 people die each year from pneumonia.
But no, that's a great point, Dana, because would we be having this conversation if it was Fred and Lucille next door?
I feel like a lot of the pneumonia cases are usually either people that are already in the hospital. Sometimes it's
pneumonia is because
hereditary.
something has worsened into pneumonia.
Yep. And then a lot of elderly people as well. I feel like Brittany wouldn't have been the typical person to get it. So she definitely should have called 911 and probably wasn't one that should have died from it.
Yeah, I think everything just got accelerated with the anemia and this weird cocktail of pills she was taking that were not prescribed to her. I had a lot of feelings going back to this case. Like, it all came back to me the way that I felt when it happened. And it was just that shock and disbelief. How is this even possible? And for the short time that we had her, Brittany was such a light in this world. And obviously, this was so completely preventable for both of them had they just gotten medical attention. So everybody go to the doctor. We'll never know exactly what happened, but I really wish we could do more than just speculate wildly.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to our show today. We ask you to please subscribe to us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else that you find your favorite podcasts, just so you don't miss out on any of our episodes. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at SWACPod, SWACPOD, or you can contact us via email for questions, comments, or case ideas. Our email address is swacpod@gmail.com. That's SWACPOD@gmail.com. Thanks so much for speculating wildly with us tonight.